In this video, we're going to take a look at a blue ink by Montblanc Royal Blue. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the blue ink playlist, so if you want to see more blues, there's tons of them in that playlist. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get some shading in the extra fine that's a lot lighter than the stub. Very nice shading throughout, though a very light tone. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine, also with very good shading all the way through it. The extra fine took 7 seconds to dry, while the medium took 11. Scrubby for both show good color variation, and we get it in the writing. Smear test, I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Sailor 1911 ringless was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Oh, and it had a fine nib. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no real ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We are getting some shading in the extra fine. Yes, it's there, but it started super dry and then the flow got better on the medium, and I really like how this looks here. The darkest tone on the page by far, where the medium is by far the lightest tone. 11 seconds to dry for extra fine, 19 for medium. The scrubby for both do show some color variation. It is there in the medium. You do see some shading, not so much with the extra fine. The smear test says you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And you see this is truly a prime blue. It's just blue. Now, that little other color smudge thing that's there, I think when these were set down on the counter, there was something there that they kind of picked up, because it's on both of them and in the same spot. Now, the one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's put into water, and it really looks flipped. Most of the ink is on the bottom in a line, formed and staying, and very little is moving up. We can expect a little resistance from this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade for the stub or the extra fine, but little bits of it come in the medium that's much lighter than the stub or extra fine. The extra fine took 7 seconds to dry, while the medium took 13. The scrubby of the medium shows color variation, and it's just very light as a tone, while the extra fine, there's none. And the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it did lighten this ink up quite a bit. It makes it really hard to read. For that, I would not use it in a note-taking situation. Now, water's reactivating and lifting a great deal of this ink, but not all of it. Pen flush is definitely completely cleaning it off of the paper, but it only took water to get it out of my pen. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it, as it normally does. The next writing sample is done on monokaki paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen, plenty of shading in the extra fine, decent shading in the medium. This is really looking very unpredictable as an ink when I go through these writing samples. The extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while the medium took 7. The scrubby for both does show some color variation. It is there in the writing, just no shading in that stub. In the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Montblanc's Royal Blue has a viscosity of 1.66, so it's a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests and all that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now let's take a look at Moji paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen. We are getting plenty of shading in the stub, in the extra fine, and in the medium. The stub and extra fine are the same tone, while the medium is definitely much lighter, and the extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while the medium only took 9. The scrubby for both do show some color variation left to right, and we definitely get it in the writing, and the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Montblanc's Royal Blue has an average dry time of 11 seconds, so this is a pretty fast drying ink. The last writing sample is done on 20-pound copy paper. Now there's obviously a ton of ghosting over how deep this ink is getting into the page. This spot right here is the only spot that it touched the page underneath. So it has a potential of ruining the next page, but you definitely can't use the back of that paper. We have no feathering. We have quite a bit of spread that's going on in the extra fine. It comes almost up to a medium. No halo, no sheen. No shade. It only took a second to dry for that extra fine. The scrubby says there should be some color variation. There's not. In the smear test, you can't smear it, so don't even worry about it. Instead of finding inks that look like Montblanc's Royal Blue, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a magenta ink by Krishna, their Sakthy, because Royal Blue is not my favorite color, so I decided to give it just not red, magenta. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. What do I think of Montblanc's Royal Blue? If it's not in the right pen, this is too light and uninteresting. Once you get the right pen, this is a nice blue with half-decent shading, though it didn't show in the writing samples as well. I could use a bottle of this up with no real heartburn. And Royal Blue isn't normally my color. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I would use a very wet pen to get the darker tones. The lighter ones are just too light to read. Now, a wet extra fine or fine look really good on the page and give you a little bit of shading that stands out just a little bit. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Diamine's Magical Forest.